everybody, and welcome to the Aggieville Alleycats podcast, where come rain, shine, or anything in between, we're here to deliver to you the Kansas State sporting news that you so love. I'm Ace Edwards, right alongside
Connor Balthazar.
And welcome to one of the definitions of an off-season episode, because we're doing a top 10 list, which is universal code for which is universal podcast code for the hosts either didn't have time to do a different idea or they're just completely out of ideas. We'll leave it up to you which one it is. But before we get into the top 10 of our favorite and best Klieman era victories for K-State football, we do want to thank the sponsors of the show, and that is Greg, Arthur, and Grandma.
Thank you, Grandma.
Thanks, Grandma. But if you want to have your name read out at the beginning of every single episode, please be sure to check out the official supporters link in our podcast bio and Twitter bio as well. But Connor, we're going to go just from 10 to 1, as normal top 10 lists go. And do you want to start us off, or do you want me to kick us off?
I'll go ahead and start.
Okay.
I went with I felt like it would have been weird to not include this game, if for no other reason than it was the one that started them all. And so my number 10 pick is Nicholls State in 2019. Which first game of the Klieman era, a pretty easy domination, all things considered. Nicholls State didn't score until the third quarter. K-State wins as 149-14. Fun fact, Harry Trotter, first touchdown of the Klieman era, on a 9-yard touchdown run, may just be the longest rush of his career.
Yeah.
But,
it honestly might be, yeah.
Yeah, there a lot of people scored in this game. Tyler Burns, blast from the past, he had a rushing touchdown in this one. So, I mainly included this just starting off the Klieman era with a bang. Both the transfer running backs scored in this one, Jordan Brown and James Gilbert. Dalton Schoen had a passing touchdown. Skyler had a rushing touchdown. This is a very typical Klieman with Skyler sort of game as we would come to expect it. This is a interesting roster. It's really come a long way. This is back when Wayne Jones was a true freshman and was a safety still. So,
what a time to be alive that was, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm also, for my number 10 slot, I'm also picking a game from the 2019 season, but it's the game 2 games later, and that is up against Mississippi State down in Starkville. This was sort of the first, I would say probably the first, I don't want to say legitimate, but the first big win for the Klieman era. Going down to an SEC crowd, going up against Mississippi State, and playing on the road in Mississippi State, especially with the cowbells, or are they cowbells? I think they're cowbells.
Yeah, they're cowbells.
Is really a tough ask. Plus, you got one of the most iconic K-State hits probably ever in the helicopter hit to Garrett Schrader. But this game had a quiet amount of legit dudes for Mississippi State we still ended up pulling out a victory. Kylan Hill and Garrett Schrader were both on this team, and people forget about Kylan Hill because now he's just like a punt returner for the Packers, I think. But before the air raid was installed in Mississippi State, he was a legit guy. And to me, you can't not think about the helicopter hit when you think of this game. And if it weren't for that hit, don't misunderstand, this game would not be in the number 10 spot. But that hit is just so great that I feel like this had to crack the list somewhere.
Yeah. I remember thinking around this time, I was like, wow, this Kylan Hill guy is a really, really good running back. And he really did kind of get done dirty by switching to air raid, because he still was able to be all right in it, but he was like a first or second team SEC all SEC running back, which is not an easy feat. Like I think he ran for at least 1,000 yards a couple times. I know when he visited Manhattan the year before, he just obliterated us. Like that was one of the more obvious examples of Bill's recruiting towards the end, where really Mississippi State just ran it down our throats with oh gosh, what was the quarterback, the big guy, Nick Stark,
Oh,
something like that.
hang on. Let me go back to
Yeah.
that.
Their 2018 QB, he was just a ginormous
Nick
Fitzgerald.
who ran for, you were correct, he ran for 159 yards. Kylan Hill ran for 211.
Yeah, that was a rough game. We only got one touchdown in that one, but no, it's a good pick. I have that on my list next, actually, number 9, which is why I was spending so much time talking about it. The only reason that I put it higher was because the beatdown that we got the year before. Because I mean, we looked like we just did not belong on the same field as Mississippi State the year before. Offensively in that game, we scored 1 touchdown, and it was set up by a deflected pass turned Wyatt Hubert interception. And I think 1 play later, Dalton Schoen corner route touchdown. But up until that point, I mean, there was nothing. And after that point, there was nothing. But with pretty much the same roster, Klieman went down into Starkville and pulled off a Power 5 road ranked victory. Mississippi State was number 23 at the time that we went down there. So that's just a incredible feat. Oh gosh, what was it? Daniel Green. He had a fumble recovery in this game, which he still wasn't a starter at linebacker, but he was good enough to rotate in because he was playing behind Daquan Patton and Elijah Sullivan, which Daquan Patton, that's a name I've not heard in a while, but
yeah, that is a talk about blast from the past.
Yeah, there are some pretty interesting names here, like Kyle Ball, Jordan Mitty, Jerron McPherson,
J-Mac.
Yep, Trey Deshawn. How about this? Jonathan Durham. I think maybe the last white corner to come through Kansas State University. But it's this is a massive win and a tone setter, really, in year 1 to start 3-0 with progressively more difficult opponents. Like Klieman, I think there were still like a lot of doubters up until that point, probably, or at least people that were unsure. But beating an SEC team on the road in your first month of your first season is huge.
That's good work. Yeah, that is some good work. My number 9 pick sort of plays off of the idea of the doubters of the Klieman era. And I think that you just me saying that, you know exactly what game I'm going to bring up next, because it's a game that came off of the back of 3 consecutive conference losses after the COVID season. So everything was really bad, really, really bad going down into 2021 Texas Tech. And this was also the game that got Matt Wells fired. K-State ends up walking away with a 1-point victory, 25-24. And you'll notice a theme with a lot of my games can be defined by one magic moment. The magic moment in this game and honestly, I think you and I had this debate or maybe discussion, probably the most impactful play in terms of the butterfly effect of the Klieman era. And that is Felix just carrying a dude into the end zone to get that tackle for loss and wake the team up after being down. I think they were down, was it 24? They were down 24-10 at that point, weren't they? Or is it worse?
I think it was 24-10, if I remember. And I know they were down 14-0 in the first 5 minutes of that game. Things were bad really fast, and things were bad going in. So I mean, that was just a horrible situation.
Yeah, but K-State ends up walking away in comeback fashion off of the back of Felix dragging a poor left tackle who's probably an accountant now and has to live with that memory, and hopefully his child never finds that highlight. But I, you'll notice a lot that my list is based off of iconic moments, and iconic moments make for iconic games, and to me, this Texas Tech game is defined by that Felix TFL, and that's not to say that there weren't other notable performances. There were. Skyler threw for over 300 yards and a touchdown, and Landry Weber almost got 50 receiving yards. Deuce ends up catching 7 passes for 68 yards and a touchdown. Daniel Ormator Bebe got one of his 6 catches for 32 yards. And then Tyrone Howell had 1 for 30 as well. So there were a few good performances that just got overshadowed by Felix just embarrassing some poor guy.
Yeah, there were some pretty memorable moments in that game that do get forgotten because of the Felix moment, which I mean, deservedly so, is like one of the most well remembered plays of the Klieman era. But Deuce, he had a highlight reel open field juke clinic at one point where he knocks like 2 Tech defenders out of their shoes. Skyler put together a really good drive to take the lead, and the game-changing play there was a wheel route to Deuce, and Skyler just dropped it in perfectly. Howell, yeah, I remember that being a pretty good sideline catch, like a leaping sideline catch. And yeah, Bebe, I somehow remember that one as well. Because I mean, he did have like 10 catches, but it felt like all of them were massive catches, it seemed like. But that game narrowly missed my list. I had to make some tough cuts. But I guess now we can go into number 8, unless you have anything else to say about this game.
Nope, I'm good.
I went with a game, the most recent game for K-State, as the Pop-Tarts Bowl against NC State that just happened this last December. The reason I went with that was pretty much entirely because of the kind of new beginnings theme of it, with it being Avery's first start, it being Connor Riley's first game as offensive coordinator, and there just being generally a lot of turnover, and us kind of transitioning into a different era for K-State. And not only that, but Avery played well, and the defense did really well too. Defense was really, I think, great in this game, but we faced a fantastic NC State team that, even without Peyton Wilson, was still a really good squad. And we came out ahead when it was all said and done. And so I had to put this game in there just for it being a kind of a milestone moment, with it being Avery's first career start for K-State. And then also this was just K-State's, I think, second bowl win under Klieman. So another big moment there. And of course, everything surrounding the Pop-Tarts Bowl was generally really humorous and funny anyways. So there was plenty going on.
My number 8 is the exact same game. My number 8 was also the Pop-Tarts Bowl. And a big part of that, like you said, is ushering in the new era for Avery Johnson, but also just kind of, seeing the differences in the scheme, and a lot of it, just the Pop-Tarts Bowl was amazing. And if I had it my way, the Pop-Tarts Bowl would be the national championship. And I'm not trying to posthumously, good enough word. I'm not trying to posthumously change like the Pop-Tarts Bowl to be the national title. I'm not going to claim it for K-State, but I also wouldn't be mad at all if the national title got changed to the Pop-Tarts Bowl. I wouldn't be mad about that at all.
Yeah, that wouldn't upset me too much. I think it would definitely be a nice tradition to sacrifice a Pop-Tart every year after the national champion is crowned. I mean, genius marketing for Pop-Tarts, but it can also be a fun little thing to do at the end of the national title, although I doubt that's probably like the last thing they want to be thinking about. But yeah. No, it definitely delivers some really great content.
Yeah. It's also worth noting that in this game, Avery had 3 total touchdowns, but DJ also almost carried the ball 30 times for 150 yards and a touchdown. This was when I kind of realized, this is a complete aside, that Trayshawn Ward was kind of bad. Like he just kind of wasn't very good.
Yeah, he really was. I think lackluster given the bill of goods that we were sold. Like he was a completely serviceable running back, but DJ is just so much better in every facet, really. But yeah, DJ 151 on the ground this one, and then also a 37-yard touchdown reception as well on that first drive. He took that little leak. I don't know, whatever that is.
Yeah,
But,
it's just a little. Yeah, it's just a little seam.
yeah, but yeah, really good game for DJ.
Yeah. Plus, you had the Cooper Beebe rushing in front of Jack Bloomer.
Yeah,
for the fake punt, and then it happened to us, and it wasn't as cool.
Yeah, Sterling Lockett kind of got stiff armed, and that wasn't as fun. But no, it was definitely an interesting game. I was happy to see some younger guys get some chances, and a few even older guys get to play a little more than they had been. Like Egan Johnson got to play a bit more in this game, got a little bit more run. But I was really happy, I think maybe most of all, to see the entire offensive line run it back for one last game. So that was really fun.
Yep. So anyway, Connor, what's your number 7?
It's another game from 2023. And it's another game that's Avery Johnson focused, and that's the Texas Tech game in 2023. If Avery Johnson hadn't stepped on the field in this one, this would probably be on the opposite end of the list. But Avery Johnson ends up exploding onto the scene in this game. This was really his coming out party for college football, scoring 5 rushing touchdowns in this one, like tied the most or was the most ever for a freshman or true freshman. He was just incredible in this game. Only went 8 of 9 for 77 yards through the air, but even then, a couple of those passes were really good. But obviously, the story from this game is Avery Johnson scoring all 5 touchdowns for K-State, and being able to fill in when Will Howard was kind of struggling to start the day. Trayshawn Ward actually had 118 rushing yards in this game on 15 carries, which I imagine was probably his best performance of the season. And DJ only went 12 for 53, which isn't terrible, but isn't what we're used to from him. But this Tech game has got to be on here, I think, just because of the solo heroics of Avery Johnson.
Yeah, that's a really good pick. For my number 7, I'm actually picking a different game from the 2023 season. And this is probably the scariest game of the year for K-State. And it was up against KU in Lawrence, a top 25 Sunflower showdown that got pretty scary pretty quickly because Andy Kotelnicki can basically do anything he wants on the football field. And the only hope for everyone else is to pray to every god that has ever been conceived. But this was a very sweaty game. You and I watched this. Did you and I watch this together, or did I watch it on my own? I think you were in Manhattan, weren't you?
Yeah, I was. We were not watching this game together.
Yeah, I was unwell for the vast majority of this game. And to me, that is kind of what makes a classic game a classic. You have to bite your fingernails at least a little bit. And, this is a game that K-State managed to grit out after KU comes out firing, and K-State ends up walking away by taking the lead in the fourth quarter. And, after a performance where a GM's son, Chris Ballard's son, just comes out and starts running all over K State because, like I said, Andy Kotelnicki can do whatever he wants. And by the way, the offense for KU is going to be really funny this next year. And if my theory is correct, there will be a new level of annoyance unlocked for me, as in I will be the one being really annoying. But yeah, this is a classic game, and again, basing it all on moments. I think this game's most iconic moment was probably the Keenan Garber recovery for the. It was a pick. It was a kick too, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. Matlick blocked the extra point. Garber runs it back and waves the weed.
Yeah, yeah. That's probably the moment for this game. But yeah, this game was asinine. And also, by the way, Kobe Bryant. I for some reason wanted to say Kobe Savage, but Kobe Bryant got away with mugging Ben Sinnott multiple times in this game, but we're just not going to talk about that because we won. By the way, that's Kobe Bryant's entire game is DPI.
Yeah. I toyed with the idea of putting that game on here, but I was in genuine agony for probably 58 of the 60 minutes. I enjoyed about the first 90 seconds and the last 30. And that's really it. Actually, no, I remember we had a weird clock issue at the end where we had to like run it out in like strange ways.
Mm-hmm.
So no, I didn't enjoy the last 30 seconds. I actually hated them even more. So I only enjoyed the first 90 seconds of this game. And the rest of the time, I was pretty much just a nervous wreck because I did not enjoy the experience one bit. Objectively, a really good game, but with any amount of emotional investment on the K-State side, at least for me, because I fear the idea of KU ever beating us again. It was not a very fun experience. A win is a win, but I think
Damn, I wish it could have been easier.
yes, I do. I really, really do. But that takes us into another game here, but this time it's from a year prior, from 2022, and it's all that stuff I said about really the emotional investment, the rivalry, and like that's how come like even though it's objectively a good game, like it wasn't very fun. This game is objectively a good game, and it was really fun for us because we went down to Norman and beat OU 41-34 with some of the greatest QB heroics that K-State has ever seen. With Adrian, his incredible 3rd and 16 run down the sideline, sliding to stay in bounds. A shot of him like smiling. We had a lot of smilers on that team in big moments. Adrian and I.
Yeah, the shot of Adrian smiling and the yell leader in the background.
Yeah, the yell leader in the background, who Adrian may not have even noticed, and Malik immediately contemplates assaulting. But no, this was an incredible game and a huge pick-me-up because we had just made it through the non-conference slate where we had a game that we win, but it was a little closer. Like it wasn't as dominant as it should have been. Whoever our non-conference opponent was that year, Mizzou, it's a big win points-wise, but the offense really struggles. And then, of course, Tulane, which is an utter disaster. So we're through 3 games with Adrian, through 3 games with Colin Klein at OC, and we're just like, what is going to happen when we go down to OU? And then we go down and not only win, but control most of the game. There were points in time where OU kind of swung the momentum, but in the big moments, K-State kind of slammed the door shut, which was incredibly satisfying because I can't say I'm super used to that, where K-State really does show up in the clutch against a team that on paper they were overmatched against. But no, Adrian played one of the best games of his life. and the defense did what it needed to for the most part. And this was just an incredible game to watch and desperately needed after the gut punch loss to Tulane.
Yeah. I there's not much that I can really add on to that description, but my number 6 game is actually different, and it is the opening of the 2020 or the 2021 season in the game that you and I actually were both in attendance independently. This was, I think, the first K-State game of the Aggieville Alleycats era as
It
well.
was, yeah.
Yeah, and this was a really fun one down in Arlington, facing off against Stanford. Ended up beating Stanford 24-7 all day. And the iconic moment for this one is Skylar's rushing touchdown or his first rushing touchdown. And I just remember having a lot of fun this game. And to me, that sometimes you're going off of moments, sometimes you're going off of vibes. This is definitely a vibes pick. Like I just had a blast down in Arlington, and it was a really fun game for K-State. We got to see a lot of new faces. This was the first game of Julius Brents, who, he just got really unlucky on a few times, and we kind of questioned if he was good, and then we figured out like 2 weeks later, oh wait, yeah, no, he's actually really good. But yeah, my number 6 was 2021 Stanford. My number 5 was 2022 Oklahoma.
Yeah, that Stanford game is a great pick because I remember it was kind of a weird game because it was supposed to be home and then it got moved, and the fan base, I remember, was very, very upset about it.
Yep.
Which is I can't blame people for being too upset about it, even though we still, I think, had 7 home games that year. But this was that was a big win. I didn't have it on my list, but you're right. That was a really fun game. And that Skylar touchdown run was big because that game kind of got off to a bit of a dull thud start with which we seem to have tried to do so much, a jump ball play to Phillip Brooks, which has transcended coordinators in the Klieman era, and I will never understand.
Luckily, we do not get the opportunity to ever try that again.
Yeah, that is he's gone. He can't hurt us anymore. So, all parties involved. But that was a really fun game. Deuce had a really great touchdown run at one point. Unfortunately, Stanford fans aren't real, so there weren't a lot of people at the game, but it was still a fun atmosphere, and it was a cool experience. Even though I didn't put it on my list, I put it in the receiving votes category.
Receiving consideration.
Yeah.
Yeah. My number 5 was the Oklahoma 2022 game, and it's the Adrian taking a bow is the moment for that game. And I that's still one of the hardest K-State pictures I've ever seen. Just Adrian taking that bow. And especially given everything Adrian had gone through and would continue to go through, it was a really shining moment and a really shining victory that, I had no expectations. Like hand in the air, I had 0 expectations going into this game. I thought we were going to get rocked. So yeah, but what's your number 5 now that I've given mine?
Really quick, I can't believe I forgot to mention the bow in the Oklahoma game in 2022. I mean, you're right though. That is like an all-time iconic, eternal highlight reel type of moment. That was kind of a viral moment as well for K-State. Which, if we want to talk about viral moments, that Mississippi State hit. I mean, that gets posted like once a year still by ESPN, sometimes twice. But we'll move on to number 5. Heading into the top 5 here, I have the Texas Bowl against LSU. From technically 2022 is a 2021 season, so bear with me there. This game was just super, super fun. This was one of the most fun games of the Klieman era, and this was the game where everything really finally came together offensively. It felt like against a decent opponent. Yeah, this LSU team is like kind of decimated by like departures and transfers and whatever. I just don't really care. Like Skylar had some phenomenal moments in this game, and we truly dominated this game. The final score 42-21. Even though we doubled them up, that's still that makes it look way closer than it really was, and it's still not even close. So this game was super fun. I remember the Skylar Thompson corner post to Phillip Brooks that was just delivered on a silver platter that remains rent-free in my head for all of eternity. One of the best, like in a vacuum, one of the best throws in K-State football history. Obviously, like he doesn't score, like it's not like a huge moment, it's not like the biggest game ever,
No,
but
it's just a throw.
no, just an incredible throw when you take all other factors out of it. But it was a super fun game. It was fun to beat up on an SEC team, even if they were kind of a lame duck SEC team. It was very funny to get an easy pick off of LSU and have Russies hit the gritty with Brian Kelly in the booth. So just really, really fun game. This was like the last game of bowl season other than playoffs, I think, as well, or one of the last. So viewership was really good too. So this was a fun game. Last game was Reggie Stubblefield as well. It was this game. So yeah, and the 2021 was a very up and down year, but ending Skylar's career with a W and really erasing most, if all, of the doubts about Colin Klein at the time. This was you can't ask for a much better way to end a football season.
Yeah, there's only two moments that are coming to my mind that you didn't mention. Firstly was the extremely sus announcer moment, which I will not be repeating. But also the interactions that we got on Style Boys afterwards. That is still one of my favorite Alley Cat memories, just by virtue of how insane those LSU fans are, threatening physical violence against a Twitter account.
Yeah, they were pretty weird. Then we beat them in basketball, and then they after that got up in our mentions after they beat us in baseball. It's like, yeah, we lost, but you also started Paul Skeens. So like we're looking back on that, and it's like, why did we bother even like covering that game? I mean, Paul Skeens was the starter. Like he was pitching, and it's like 2 years removed from that, and he's like the best pitcher in the AL. Are the Pirates in the AL or NL?
NL.
NL. I should know that. That's what my road to the show is in, but they're in the NL. He's really, really good. But I don't know. LSU fans are interesting. It also just goes to show just how they treat baseball down in Baton Rouge compared to most of the rest of the country. I mean, it's just a different animal.
LSU fans are just different animals, man.
They are animals, man.
I guess we'll just kind of flip here, so you don't have to double up here. But my number 5 was 2022 Oklahoma. The Texas Bowl actually did just barely miss cracking my list, and to me it was between the Texas Bowl and the helicopter hit from Mississippi State, and the helicopter hit won. That's basically the deciding factor. But the next game, my number 4 best Klieman victory, is a game from a season that everyone would rather pretend didn't happen. However, this is I'm going to go ahead and say the lone bright spot of this entire 2020 season. I know we won 4 games. I don't care. The other games were not fun to watch. And that is the Oklahoma victory down in Norman, where K-State ended up winning 38-35 against up at the time number 3 Oklahoma, led by Spencer Rattler, who I remember when he was mocked as a first-round draft pick, and I hated him then. He's mellowed out, and so have I. But I think he's mellowed out a little bit more than I have. But this this game really just turned into a classic shootout. But what really sold it for me was the 17-point beatdown in the fourth quarter. And this is also, you could make a pretty convincing argument that this was the Deuce Vaughn coming out party, who, Deuce ended up being one of the best running backs in K State history. And this was the first time that, we'd heard about him before this. We'd seen him play in the Arkansas State game. But this is where the iconic Gus Johnson, the Deuce, he is loose, came from, which I used for the rest of Deuce Vaughn's career. So this really is the lone bright spot of that 2020 season. But damn, man, this was a fun game.
No, yeah, no kidding. It's also my number 4. So we can talk about it for an extended period of time. But yeah, I mean, Deuce led the team in rushing and receiving at 129 receiving yards, only 35 rushing yards, just because, we just weren't running the ball very well this game. But yeah, this was a incredible comeback win. We were down 28-7 at one point. And the play that really changed everything was the Jerron McPherson forced fumble, where he just obliterated someone. I can't remember who it was. It was either Seth McGowan or TJ Pledger. And whoever it was, he just detonated a huge hit. And that completely changed the game from there on. Skyler threw for 334. So this was back-to-back years that OU got stunted on by Skyler. And there were some really big plays in this one. Chabastin Taylor had a huge touchdown catch at one point where he was like kind of falling down. It was like maybe the most recent contested catch in K-State football. Like, I don't know if we've had one since then, but
you could argue Cade Warner in the first TCU game.
Oh yeah, that's true. Keon Mosey had like a 80-yard catch in this game that somehow wasn't a touchdown.
Yep.
Joaquin Gill had 3 receptions in this game. That's a blast from the past. Tyler Burns played in this game, but Deuce Vaughn was the story. And he was truly incredible. Spencer Rattler threw 3 picks. At one point, he was like 15 for 15, I think, and we were just getting destroyed. Or no, it was like 14 for 15, but the one incompletion was a Justin Gardner pick.
Yep.
And that was where Justin Gardner began his immediately get toasted, but be good enough to make up the ground and make it look like you had good coverage, which is kind of just like how you play Road to Glory, really. Football is just bad throw and then make up the ground and occasionally just get burned for it. But no, this was a really, really great game. Skylar Thompson had a kind of cursed rushing stat line of 9 rushes for 10 yards and 3 touchdowns. But that's just kind of, at that point in his career, that's kind of what you could expect from him. But yeah, I think we might be identical from here on.
Yeah, we are identical from here on out. So you can reveal the number 3 selection for the top 10 best Klieman victories.
I'm very happy to reveal this one because I think, even though it's not number 1 on the list, this is maybe the game that I personally remember the most fondly, if that makes sense. Even though I know some other games are like objectively better games, this one, Oklahoma State in 2022, I just remember it being just a super fun day. Like, I absolutely loved this game. It was a blowout win against a really highly ranked Oklahoma State team. We controlled the entire game. It was homecoming, so vibes were high. The weather was good. Everything. When I think of like a perfect K-State game, I think of this game. Just a drubbing of a really quality opponent with the field storming. This was the Will Howard redemption game. Like, this game was incredible. Like I don't have a bad thing to say about it. I've rewatched it probably 4 or 5 times, I think, and like I've watched highlights probably a dozen times from this game because I just have incredibly fond memories of everything surrounding this game, from the on the field product to just like everything about it was just picturesque to me. So I just really enjoyed this game. I can't think of really a bad thing that happened in this game. Honestly, like I I, I don't know. I don't know. This game is as close to perfect as it gets. I think. If you're, I'm looking at it from a football perspective.
Yeah. And a 48-0 drubbing of a top 10 team of the country was always going to make the list. It was just a matter of where. And although that this is the only the third of the best Klieman victories, it's probably my favorite of everything on the list. But that is because I am insanely biased towards Will Howard, which events have come out that makes me sad. But I, I say come out. But this also, here's a fun fact about this game. This was the first time that K-State would face Ollie Gordon, and we held him to 2 of 5.
Yeah, yeah. I'm glad you brought that up because I was going to bring it up if you didn't. Because I remember Oklahoma State, their running back room was just ravaged by injuries coming into this game. And Ollie Gordon was mostly spurned for the likes of DeAndre Jackson and Jaden Nixon, which that has aged well, of course. But no, yeah, this was redshirt freshman or true freshman Ollie Gordon. So yeah, it was it's fun to look back on that.
Yeah. Yeah, there's nothing I can complain about with this game. But our number 2 game was my freshman year, so I hold it with especially high regard. And that is the K-State Oklahoma game from 2019, the 48-41 victory. And this was another time where I honestly thought that we were just going to die going up against Oklahoma, because I don't think we were 4-2 up to this point, right?
Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah, we were 4-2.
Yeah, this game was probably the most raucous environment that I've ever been at a K-State game. Only matched by the opening and close of the Texas game in 2022, which was a loss. But the environment for that game was amazing. Like that, but still 2019 Oklahoma takes the cake, because like you could, if you paid close attention, you could see like tables on the field vibrating because of how loud everyone was. And of course, the two iconic moments that I'm picking for this one is the trick play interception. I think that was, who picked it off? Was it Parker?
That was Parker.
Yeah. The AJ Parker interception on the trick play. And then, of course, the Mo Bamba playing in the stadium, which, man, I still just smile thinking about that. And this is, it's weirdly nostalgic. And I know it's like weird to be nostalgic about things that happened like 5 years ago, but also COVID happened. So that makes that like multiplies every year by 10. So it basically happened 50 years ago. I'm allowed to be nostalgic about this. But yeah, this was a really fun game. This is another one that I've watched quite a few times.
No, yeah. I mean, I completely agree as well. This was a really good time, I think, to be a K-State fan too, with the what was it? Just coming off of a win against TCU the week before. Max Duggan was still the quarterback at this point. Klieman's the new coach. It's a big game against OU, and vibes are just really high for this game. And it wasn't. I remember really going into that game just not expecting anything, and we went down 10-0 quick, and I was like, yeah, that's about right. That just makes sense. And then we just kept chipping away, and like hanging around, and then that pick happens after, because we kicked that field goal to make it 20-17, and then the trick play interception happens, and all of a sudden it goes from, hey, we're keeping this interesting, to we have a chance to win this game. And that was the moment where everything really changed, I think, in this game, because Skylar Thompson runs it in. OU, I always forget about this, but I'm looking at the box score right now. OU in like 20 seconds, like drove down the field and made like a 53-yard field goal at the end of the half to make it like a 1-point game. But then K-State win on a 24 unanswered run in the second half. Of course, OU made it interesting there at the end, but K-State just holds on, a huge field storm, and this was on ABC as well, so it was like a big deal. This was also just a really good time in my life as well. I remember, but Call of Duty Modern Warfare came out the night before.
Oh, damn, that's right.
So I had been up all night playing that. And then the day after, one of our mutual friends, Ace, he took me to the Chiefs-Packers game.
Oh, yeah.
The next day, which the Chiefs and the Packers are my two favorite teams. So I was able to enjoy that. So it was just a really great football weekend as well. So I remember this game really fondly. I do agree with you, though, with the Oklahoma State game. I think that is probably my favorite game, just because, like, I think if there was like a ideal like football heaven where every game for your team goes a certain way, it's probably this Oklahoma State game from 22. But the 2019 win against Oklahoma is really iconic, and I do think it's interesting. I've heard a couple people talk about kind of how this game went, particularly for our offensive success. And it pretty much came down to, we were running the same stuff over and over and over, and OU was simply not adjusting to it.
Yep.
It was that simple.
Alex Grinch moment.
Yes. So we just kept doing that, and that led to James Gilbert averaging over 8 yards a carry. Jordan Brown averaged 5.3 a carry. Even Harry Trotter, he had a 7-yard carry in this one, so pretty kind of blazing a trail there. But this is just an incredible game. At one point, Skylar had a really tight window throw into like triple coverage to, I think it was Sammy Wheeler in the red zone, that kind of gets overlooked because it just wasn't a touchdown. But this game was pretty incredible. I know at one point James Gilbert had a long run, like a 30-yarder, and I remember it because the highlight circulates every once in a while, and like all 22 and like play analysis circles on Twitter because of the action that the offensive line has, where a guy like he like is pulling but doesn't. He just like, I can't remember exactly how it's described, but it looks like he's gonna pull across. It's like a delayed like counter thing almost. Like, nothing I'm saying makes any sense.
Is this the one where he spins, where the lineman spins around?
It might be. It might be. Or I think it's he fake pulls and then kicks out, I think is what it is. Like, he gets like all the way to the center and then like goes back to where he was. I'm not describing it super well, but it's a highlight that I see really often. So this was a game that really is kind of made its way around. Yeah, this is an incredible game from a student perspective. So in the last 5 years, one of the best.
Yeah. And of course, number one, what else could it be? It's the Big 12 championship up against TCU. And even if it wasn't even if you take away the Big 12 championship aspect of it, this was still going down to, I'm not going to call it strictly hostile territory. It was like a 50-50 crowd, if memory serves. But this was going down to a team that would eventually make the national title, we're not going to talk about what happened in the national title, but this was this had the hallmarks of a truly classic game. Like you, and it's very similar to what you said. If there is a football heaven, this is one of the games that they would put on, like, for just for entertainment for all. Like this would be the best K-State game, maybe as a neutral observer. Yeah, Max Duggan has his hero moments towards the back end of the fourth quarter to force overtime. And then, of course, no! Kansas State stops them! And then Ty Zentner scaring the piss out of Connor and I by going out and smiling before he makes the biggest kick of his career. Connor and I hugging after the kick was made, and then us doing a round of celebratory shots in my apartment. It's one of my fondest memories, but even outside of that, I mean, come on, it's the Big 12 championship. The only thing that could have possibly unseated this from number one was if we somehow beat Alabama in the Sugar Bowl.
Yeah.
And even then, it probably wouldn't.
Yeah, that probably have to be like a 1A, 1B sort of situation. But no, this game was incredible. The day was really incredible too, because I remember you, me, and the rest of our group, we were trying to get in somewhere in Aggieville to watch it, but there were lines out the wazoo. And so we ended up getting stuck in Gordo's for the first half. And that was just a really funny experience.
The
we got
there. The most rum of the rum and Coke I've ever had.
Yeah, I remember we get there and we asked them if they're playing the game. They said yes, and they turned on the TV and they put on like a random soccer match from a South American league, and I was like, yeah, that's not the game that we're talking about. And so they just gave us the remote and let us drive. But so we watched the first half there, and then we relocated. And I was supposed to be studying for finals, but I was just buzzing so much. I ended up buying a ticket to the Wichita State basketball game that night, because this was the very beginning of the Tang era. So I ended up going to that, and the game was like kind of bad. It was like a 55-50 just slobber knocker, but the football team came out at halftime, and it was just an incredible environment.
Very drunk.
Yes. It was that game, the day surrounding it, and that's one of the better K-State days of my lifetime for sure.
Yeah. So to briefly recap what our list was, I'll go first. My number 10 was Mississippi State 2019, also known as the helicopter hit game. My number 9 was Texas Tech 2021, the Felix carrying the tackle into the end zone. Number 8 was the 2023 Pop-Tarts Bowl, which is just the Pop-Tarts Bowl. Number 7 was 2023 KU. Number 6, Stanford 2021. 5, Oklahoma 2022. 4, Oklahoma 2020. Oklahoma State 2022 was number 3. Oklahoma 2019 was number 2. And then the Big 12 championship up against TCU was my number 1.
Yeah, we had the same exact top 4. Every single one. But my number 10 was Nicholls State 2019. My number 9, Mississippi State 2019. Number 8, same as Ace, the Pop-Tarts Bowl from this past year, 2023. Number 7, I have Texas Tech in 2023. Number 6, OU 2022. Number 5, the Texas Bowl victory against LSU at the end of the 2021 season. Then 4, OU in 2020, 3, Oklahoma State 2022, 2, Oklahoma in 2019, and then number 1, the Big 12 championship win over the eventual national runners-up, the TCU Horned Frogs.
Yeah. So, there's a number of iconic victories already in the Klieman era. And, hopefully there's more to come. Maybe there will even get a playoff victory. I'm not the type of person, Connor, you know this about me. I'm not the type of person that will ever be happy with just making an appearance at a postseason berth. You know that I'm impossible to please. So I a playoff victory would eventually make this list, but I would not be happy for when we lost. I wouldn't have the probably objectively correct attitude of, we made it here. It was a good season. But yeah, my point is that Klieman, despite some rough patches at the first beginning of his years, like especially the 2020 season, which everyone would prefer except for Iowa State fans, would just didn't exist. He's really sort of elevated the K-State program into not only relevance for its own fan base by being a consistently good program, but also into national relevance by being one of the most watchable teams in the entire country, but also one that you always have to look out. And he froze for a minute there. Okay.
You also froze, so
My fault. Anyway, you have any final notes, Connor?
I'm really hoping and I'm expecting that after this season, this list is going to change a bit.
Yeah, if it doesn't change, something went horribly wrong.
Either that or we just consistently win by like 14 points against everybody. And just like good, not great games.
I take it.
Yeah, that's fine. I like winning.
Yeah. I guess I'll give one honorable mention, and that was UCF 2023. Mostly because the turn around.
The game that I had, the only game I had in this list that I removed was KU 2020. Entirely because that was just one of the funnier K-State games in my lifetime, because I mean that KU team really at no fault of, well, it's some fault, but not majority of the fault on the players. Just that was a just horrendous coaching staff and already a bad situation with COVID. But I mean, that was a K-State team that in hindsight wasn't very good, and really just dog walked a horrid KU team. One of that KU team is probably the worst or second worst Big 12 team in the last like 15 years. Like it's probably right up there with like that 1 year Baylor went winless in 2015 KU, at least as far as I can remember. But man, that game was very funny.
Yeah, you and I watched that with our mutual friend, didn't we?
Yes, we did. I think. And I think we ended up leaving early too, but there was just some really funny moments in that game. Most notably, the Gavin, what's his name?
Gavin Potter.
The deuce juke out that shall live in infamy.
I was gonna say the Jalen Daniels pick six on the throwback screen.
Yeah, that I think maybe has more relevance right now still, since Jalen Daniels is still playing, which is kind of crazy to think about. But yeah, I mean it's easy one to cut, I guess, because it was a blowout in a bad season. So
yeah. But that pretty much wraps up this episode of the Aggieville Alleycats podcast. Thank you all so much for listening. If you want to follow or contact the show, you can follow us just about anywhere at Aggieville Alleycats. And if you want cats@gmail.com. If you want to follow us on a more personal note, I am at ACEdward00.
I am at Connor Baltazar, capital C, capital B.
And if you want to support us financially, please be sure to check out the official Aggieville Alleycats merch store or the supporters link, both in our podcast and Twitter bios. But most importantly, thank you all for listening to this episode of the Aggieville Alleycats podcast. Where come rain, shine, or anything between, we're here to deliver to you the Kansas State sporting news that you so love. Stay safe, Alleycats.